Patterson Foundation
strengthens people, organizations, and communities by focusing on issues that address mutual aspirations,
foster wide participation, and encourage learning and sharing.
Welcome to Discover DeSoto, a podcast brought to you by the Patterson Foundation. By pursuing shared aspirations, we can strengthen ourselves and our communities. In this podcast, you'll hear stories from all corners of DeSoto County through the lens of DeSoto County Ahead. From residents to community leaders and everyone in between. Join us as we discover DeSoto, one story at a time. Hi, I'm Alicia Exantis, Community Engagement Specialist with the Patterson Foundation, and your host today. Joining me is Cheri Coryea, Initiative Lead for DeSoto County Ahead. Cheri, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, welcome. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and hearing one story at a time. There are so many stories.
We're so excited to dive into them.
Right.
Today, here's how we're going to go ahead and start this. Let's start with a little bit of history. History with the Patterson Foundation and its connection in DeSoto County. I'd love to start by giving you a year and having you give me one word to describe your impact for that specific year.
Okay.
So we're going to start with the year of 2022.
I would say discovery is the right word for 2022.
Okay, that goes perfect. Right alongside with Discover DeSoto. Discovery, tell me why. Tell me why that's your word.
Well, in prior years, of course, the Patterson Foundation strengthens people, organizations, and communities that foster wide participation. And to say that DeSoto County has been on a journey. All of our initiatives here at the Patterson Foundation have had some form of impact to DeSoto County, but especially early on, the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading, the Digital Access for All initiative is where I really found out DeSoto County has a lot of potential, but they need help discovering what all the possibilities are. And so that's how we got to April of 2022. We started some community conversations.
So you are leading those. You're speaking with members of the community. How many people were in those conversations, and were they themed? Were they just random? How did you go about those?
Well, I love that you asked that because some colleagues of mine here at the Patterson Foundation, Ashley Kuhn and Josephine Eisenberg at that time, we went into trying to start some conversations because we've all been a part of the Harwood Institute and learning that conversation model, but we weren't sure where to start. So it wasn't a secret sauce to begin with, but what it was that we started with those that stepped forward first. And the first group to step forward was a youth group with the Future Farmers of America, the Young Leaders Group. And oh my God, that was a revelation. About 15 young people that from the age of 13 to 17, just talking about their community and going through what their aspirations were. It was so inspiring. It really jump-started our effort to make sure that this was a full community project, meaning youth, adults, nonprofits, and older folks that had been there for a while.
I know you also met with other groups. Tell me who else you met with.
So some of the other groups, we had over 20 community conversations, and the Ministerial Society. We met with the nonprofit organizations. We met with the educators. We met with the business community. Just to name a few, we went to some locations, which is really important for the audience to know, is that this project is not everyone come to us. We don't arrive with the answer. We arrive with the questions, and we arrive to places where people feel comfortable sharing their aspirations. And so even places like the Housing Authority and some churches, because interestingly enough, now we know there are 72 churches in DeSoto County.
Okay. Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have these conversations, you hear these aspirations, you have this public knowledge. What do you do with it? Bring me into 2023. What's your word?
Well, my word for 2023, I'm going to say that's engagement, because there was this type of concept with the community conversations is all about engaging with people, but even digging deeper. So even though you've had 20 conversations, you haven't touched the surface of really everyone. And so we're always still looking for those people that might be invisible still, or behind the scenes, or haven't found their place to come forward. So the engagement word that I'm using allows for the conversation to continue beyond just the organized community conversations to a point where people are identifying folks that might be interested in coming in to talk more about the project. So those conversations happened. We engaged over 430 people in those conversations. They're meant to be small, so they're anywhere from maybe 15 to 20. And they're also meant for people to learn about the public knowledge. So what do other people think? How do other people feel? But overall, it's to gain a shared aspiration for DeSoto County and to turn outward to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love engagement because I know at the end of 2023, you say you barely touched those that live in DeSoto, but I saw a Turner Center filled with those from DeSoto in 2023. Tell me, you hear these conversations, you hear their aspirations, and you must have heard something there to create this DeSoto County event. Tell me more about that event.
So keeping in mind that DeSoto County Ahead, the initiative description now, was not in existence at this time. We were still working under the Aspirations to Action initiative and all of the learnings that we have in that and the other examples of communities that we've worked on. So as we start to move forward in the Aspirations to Action work, DeSoto community members, residents, people, businesses, they're just coming into the project with excitement and they're also inquisitive too. What are we doing there? What's the foundation doing there? What are they going to do to us? We heard that a lot. We heard from people that over the years, a lot of philanthropic groups wanted to help and have helped with things, but really basically coming in with a more prescriptive, we're going to target this or we're going to do that. The Patterson Foundation's model is not in that manner. We're there to listen to everyone, and what we found in all those conversations, that there were themes, and there were 8 themes, and those themes were throughout the community, things such as beautifying the community. They want a beautiful community, and right now you see a lot of construction going on because they're growing and things are happening, but there are also aspirations for then that to be more beautiful. You see safety as an issue, and having the sheriff's department and the police department come together with the community was inspiring as well. So those 8 themes are throughout, but those are the voices of the people of DeSoto County. And I think that's another really important thing to say, Alicia, is when we start writing about all of the things that we're working on and when the themes were built, those aren't my words or your words or anyone else. Those aren't the Patterson Foundation words. Those are the words and the voices of the people there. So that's how it starts to build. People recognize, what they've brought to the table, and they continue to be inspired to bring their aspirations forward.
I love that I can feel your passion for working in communities. It's great. But we're only in 2023, and I know you've been so busy. So let's move on to 2024.
Okay.
What would be your word for 2024?
Evolving would be my word for 2024 because it always has continued. And the evolution of what has been happening there in 2024 really built with the event you talked about that started in October of 23. And that was such a transforming event to see all of the people come together. But one of the most exciting things about it that I don't really think any of us involved in the project, and even the people that were at the event in 2023 realized was that there are already so many resources that are there and available, but people didn't know how to access them. They didn't know the faces and the voices and the locations of those. So having that resource fair at our community event in 2023 allowed us to see that, we're building connections. We're helping them find a common place to feel comfortable and to come together. And that in 23, we had about 50 different resources. And just watching everyone learn what's already available, which is really important.
Yeah, because you're not describing a county that has nothing or is doing nothing to try to help each other. You're describing a county who's doing way more than we even hear about in other places. They just might not be connecting and working together.
Right. And I thought another aspect of 2023 leading up to this evolution was that some of the other entities, like the local government, like the county commissioners, like the school board, the sheriff, the marshal, and others, they're doing all of their daily work. They're protecting people, they're educating people, they're governing. And, you know, it's hard already to get people to come to those kinds of meetings and share. What this project did was we went back and we got all of them together. Once we had talked to all of the people that we talked to, we got them together, and we thought we were going to have a conversation, Alicia. We thought we're going to do the same conversation with these leaders, like the county administrator and the sheriff. But what we found in that initial meeting was they needed for us to listen to what their issues were, and there were a lot of them. So the things that they struggled with every day, the things that they were challenged with that kept them from doing all the good work they wanted to do. So we're listening, and I'm starting to feel like this is really a good thing that they're sharing that amongst each other, because normally those are things you wouldn't speak about and admit to, let's say. And so it was great at the end of that conversation, you know, as everyone felt like they had shared, you know, I said, hey, guess what? There's over 400 people in your community that have already identified themselves that they want to help you work on those same things. They support you. They're behind you. They want to be part of making it better. And the look that we got was, really? And we know where they are, and we know who they are, and they are ready. So it was a strange, you know, circle to come back to, and now let's get started. So that's when I say evolution, that's how I feel the evolution started.
Okay, so your evolution is like going into 2024.
Yes.
Okay, so you decide, you're there, you've got your team members, you're ready, you hear an outreach or a call for needing some type of newsletter or something to connect them. So what do you do? What's your move?
Well, you're right. I mean, what a challenge, right? There has not been a newspaper like a newspaper that we might be, you know, get in the communities we live in for the last 8 years. There's limited technology access there. So, you know, if you get up and you read on your phone the news that day, some of those folks in the community just don't have access to that because the fiber network's not there, or they don't have a reliable connectivity. So we sat back and we said, wow, even the traditional methods that we've used through social media and other things, how are we gonna reach these people? There was a survey done, and we worked with Magnify Good, which is a great partner to the Patterson Foundation, and almost 400 people, around 80 or so in Spanish and the rest in English, answered this survey and said where they get their information, and most of it was Facebook and online things and shared things. And sometimes when I said there's 72 churches, they get them at church on Sunday. We decided that it was important that the community understand what the Patterson Foundation was doing in the community. Because if you remember right, a little while ago I mentioned we're not there to do something to them. We're there to help them discover their aspirations and move forward. So we wanted to be really clear about the Patterson Foundation's purpose, that we're a partner, that we're their help guide, we're there to support. We're not there to take over, to be the leader of everything. So the newsletter idea was created to help share that avenue so that we were able to tell people, we're here to help you learn more. And then it has evolved. It was originally a newsletter for DeSoto, but it was also then named by someone in DeSoto. So that contest took place, and it's the DeSoto Digest now. We are right at the 1-year birthday of that newsletter, and there are over 800 people on the digital version, because that's another note to have, which is it comes out once a month. digitally to over 800 and growing. Anybody can, let us know they want to subscribe to it. And then also we do hard copy versions, and we have one of our team members, Cheri, who delivers those once a month to 12 to 15 different sites. So as Cheri delivers those newsletters, and she's talking to people, meeting people, and creating new locations to deliver it to, she's also saying, well, there are people here in the community that are doing great things, and let's focus on them. So you find in that newsletter community highlights, community champions. You learn about upcoming events, but one of the other keys in there that has been important to the Patterson Foundation to share with DeSoto is, as I mentioned also earlier, there are other foundations doing work there, and it's not a competition. And everyone should know that. I love that I'm getting to say that on the podcast.
Yes.
Is that we're not in competition. We're all there to bring our expertise and support and help uplift the community towards their aspirations. So in that newsletter, we're also able to share what other foundations are doing, like the Selby Foundation, when they're doing Selby Scholars and they're doing some of their small but mighty grants. We get to help them advertise those are available, and we also get to then advertise those success stories, because you talked about stories. There are a lot of stories. And then, the Gulf Coast Community Foundation of Sarasota County, Baransik, all of them are doing work in DeSoto County that's important. And so what I'm really happy with is that the newsletter allows for all those things to be shared monthly, and people have different opportunities and ways to read it on their phone, which is a very used method in DeSoto County, but also at home. And then lastly on that subject, Leisha, I'll say we do collaborate with the Arcadia Community Local, and one of Carol Mailer, who's one of the people who writes so many stories there, keeps us alert of things that are happening. And then also there's a very popular magazine called the Peace River Shopper, and that gets us out into areas of the community that might not have been a part of conversations, but it's a weekly, and we do some advertising in there and obviously connections back to the newsletter. So it's really exciting.
I love it.
Yeah.
Listeners, if you are watching right now, there will be a QR code for you to go ahead and sign up for the DeSoto Digest. And at the bottom, you will see Cheri's email. So if you are an organization or someone on those outskirts that she's talking about, that we might not have had those community conversations yet, feel free to send an email, and we would love to bring some paper copies by.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And if there's something you think we haven't covered, we want those ideas. And we have a team of people that work on it, and we love everybody to get stories from you. So if you want to be an author, you want to write a small story, you want to write a blog, you want to provide quotes or reflections of things that are happening in DeSoto, don't be shy. Alicia and I would be happy to make sure those get into an upcoming DeSoto Digest.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so evolution is starting really strong. You're starting with that communication piece, and I hear trust. I hear trust from those that live there. They're reaching out to you. They're feeling comfortable talking to you. There's a newsletter now having their words and their stories incorporated into it. What else is happening with evolution, with leaders, with making the invisible visible? There's some things here I'd like to know. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I think another thing that's important to always remind everyone is that change happens at the speed of trust. And we don't have a time frame on projects here with the Patterson Foundation. Initiatives can take a variety of different directions, but they're rooted in the work that's being done. And so this particular initiative, I might add, then, as we were talking about the DeSoto Digest, became named the DeSoto County Ahead Initiative. It went from Aspirations to Action work in DeSoto to its own initiative. And how thrilling is that? Because we knew that there were so many people that were really pushing forward. There's an important aspect of DeSoto County right now that I'm sure people, as soon as I mention it, they're gonna be, I knew that, but think about it and think about where you live right now. So where you live right now, there's a lot of change going on. People are moving into the area. Businesses are expanding. You're seeing transportation and infrastructure changes. But in DeSoto County, that's going to happen. It's not happened in excess yet, but the people want to have a say-so in how that happens. So they want to be a part of change, but they have a really important aspect of history there. And they want to keep that history, and we learned that from the students too. They love the fact that they're very well known for their ranches and their cattle and their agriculture, but also they know to evolve and want to come back to the community after being educated. There's got to be industry there. So that's starting to happen now, and the neat thing is that one of the themes that the community came up with was having an essence of the history, but also smart planning for growth. And I think that is just, it's so commendable to them because it is sometimes done to you by whoever comes in with the money. And so those are things that are happening right now to everyone, and having them engaged in this process and having the recognition that they have is allowing that voice to be heard.
I hear you telling me things that they're telling you. Is there a document or some type of data or something that shows us those facts that you're hearing from others?
Yeah, so in 2020, early 2024, the Patterson Foundation began an engagement with the Harwood Institute for Public Innovation. And all the things I've talked about before led us to believe that as all of the initiatives combined that we've been working with there, that there was really something that the community would want to move forward with related to civic faith. This engagement with the Harwood Institute began late June of 2024 and has built into important conversations and actually a public capital report that's just for DeSoto County. And it's really unique, and I'd love to come back and talk all about that process. But the uniqueness about it is it really set forth a standard of the things that the community had been talking to us about in those previous conversations. But then there were more roundtables led by the Harwood Institute coaches, and all of that information learned by that additional 1,000 people. So, now we have 1,400, 1,500 people, all different. I can tell you that because I know I was at them all, that there's a path forward, but there's also an identification of what some of the barriers are. And so that report was published in July of 2024, and it really set forth the stage of how the community was going to continue to work together.
All right. I love that you're going to come back and talk a little bit more about that with us. We will drop the QR code here in case our listeners want to do a little homework.
Great.
They can read it, review it, and then we'll go more in depth in that. Now, you said June of 2024, and I know that's leading into that September, October, November hurricane season here. So I'd love a word for that end of 2024 into 2025 and what's going on?
Anticipation.
Okay.
Because we were ready for our community update event, which was scheduled for November 7th of 2024. And so all of this work leading up to it, and then including the Harwood Institute's work, and at that time, the opportunity to have a Public Innovators Lab would have happened prior to November 7th. But we had a visit from 3 very interesting people, Hurricane Debbie, Hurricane Helene, and Hurricane Milton. And that threw everyone off. Now, I will have to say in DeSoto County, they were not as impacted by those 3 as Manatee and Sarasota and Charlotte because these were coastal, but because they were impacted by Hurricane Ian, 2 years prior, they knew and they were ready, and they also had things that they had to be able to, recover from and repair. So we pushed that event, the community update event, to January of 2025. And it has been actually what I would tell you when I talked about everything evolving. it allowed us to continue to evolve and gather more people in the process and have, even a more impactful time with them.
The event was amazing. I was lucky enough to work the event with you. And I have to say, watching it grow and evolve and transform from the first one, just as someone who got to witness both, it was breathtaking. It was awesome. So I know you could do a whole nother segment on that event, but I'd love to briefly hear you say just a couple key things that came out of that event.
Yeah, and I think if we do talk about it again, I'm going to have a better word than event, because it's more than that. But for me today, since we're doing words, I'm going to say it was magical. And the magic of it was it grew. It grew from the year before from 50 resource exhibitors to over 60. I think 67, I believe. So 17 more. Now, who would have thought that just in 1 year's time there were 17 more? But this is the part of the discovery, right? Because now people are learning where they can get connected, how they can be connected. We had over 400 people attend the event in January, and it was magical in the sense that people were connecting. Not only were the exhibitors connecting, but also all of the participants. And I think I'll touch on that real quick, because you know how sometimes if you're working at an event and you're at an exhibitor booth and you're one of the people providing the information, you don't get to talk to anybody else that's there, just the people that come through. So you don't get to learn about a program that's to the right or left of you, or one that's across the room, and you're curious, like what is the eligibility? Who's your target population? I just want to meet these people. Well, that's the uniqueness of this particular process, is that all of the exhibitors are encouraged to also learn about each other and make those connections. And so from that, what I've seen happen, and I've got some great single examples, is that there's a group that targeted autism in DeSoto County, where we know, it's come to my attention, there's not a lot of offerings for the parents there, but there are in other places, but the parents are together. And so I saw those people talking to each other, making connections, and then they contacted me afterward and said, we're having a meeting, we're getting together, and we're learning what resources parents in other communities have, and we're going to try to get those here. So that's just
what a ripple effect.
Yes.
A ripple effect through the community, just from having that organization talk to that organization, connect those parents to both. That's amazing. I do hear you saying that you watched, you witnessed, you encouraged others to share their cookies.
Yes.
As you know, here at TPF, if those cookies remain, let's say cookies are your knowledge, your resources, if they remain in that jar, they're going to go stale. I don't want a stale cookie. I know that. So you were encouraging those organizations. You allowed time. You had prizes so that others could be encouraged to go out, share their cookies, share their resources, and create those ripple effects in the community.
Yeah, the Patterson Foundation is really, really supportive of a program that they call Pay It Forward. And so even those of us that are part of the organization get an opportunity to pay it forward when we do work or when we are a part of discovering information, and we pay it forward to organizations, nonprofit organizations. And so what was really neat was that was a big aspect, which I love, of this event that probably not everyone knows, is that participating in certain aspects of leading up to the event, but then also at the event, there are pay it forward opportunities to nonprofit organizations. And because this initiative is focused on DeSoto County only, those go to DeSoto County organizations. And so we had a $1,000 winner who had an opportunity to provide a pay it forward to a nonprofit of their choice, and it was a really, really important one, Strolling for a Cure. And you could tell the significance of that by the person who won and who they selected. And so that's another aspect of what the Patterson Foundation is doing throughout this particular relationship with DeSoto County, is we're encouraging people to share their cookies, and then also to help each other in learning and sharing what they do, and it not to be competitive, but to be collaborative.
Now, Cheri, that was early January 2025.
Yeah.
It's been a little over a month, but you sound like a busy lady. Has anything else occurred? Anything else going on? Anything you'd like to fill me in on before we go today?
Yeah, so there is a couple things.
Okay.
And one is that throughout this discovery and the engagement and the evolution of this particular project, what we found was there's a theme, another theme emerging in the community.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the event on January the 8th, we did roll out a very important theme for the community, and that theme is building our future with every voice. And that solidifies that we're there listening, we're there helping connections, we're there help sharing, we're doing all of those types of things so that the community voice is heard and that the future and the aspirations of the community continue. And so throughout this year, this early part, these first 2 months, that's been something we've been continuing to share, and you're going to see that continue. You're going to see that theme continue, and you're going to see a lot of important people from the community in that. Also, we did have our rescheduled Public Innovators Lab. We just recently completed that with over 60 participants from the community in a 2-day in-person lab with Harwood coaches, and now the work continues.
And that's my next question. So the work continues. If someone is listening, whether they live in our 4-county region, Manatee, Sarasota, Charlotte, or DeSoto, and they want to become involved, how do they get in touch with someone? How do they do that?
Well, easily they can email me,
Okay.
and you're already going to be providing that. They can email you as well based on listening to the podcast. But you're right; it doesn't matter where you live. You can live in another state or be a part of a community that you want to see and be a part of it. We especially would love to have more participants from DeSoto County build their future like that. And so reaching out to the Patterson Foundation, obviously on the Patterson Foundation's website, we have an abundance of information and connections. You just look for the DeSoto County Ahead initiative. All that information's there. Emailing, phone calls, calling into the office, reaching out to any of the team members. We really never let any of those drop. We always find a way to help people start to come in.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That importance of the connections, the relationships, ecosystems inside of ecosystems inside of ecosystems. That's what I'm hearing here. And how can we meet and reach more people? So yes, please email us, reach out to us. We would love to get you connected with what's going on with the DeSoto County Ahead Initiative. But Cheri, I can't let you go with that being our last question.
Oh no, what are you doing?
Here we go. Before we wrap up today, I have to ask, this podcast is called Discover DeSoto. So what's one thing you'd like to highlight about DeSoto County? Whether it's a hidden gem, your favorite place to shop, maybe a local restaurant or an outdoor activity, you tell me one thing you want to make sure if someone goes to DeSoto, they discover it.
Wow. Oh, Alicia, you're putting me on the spot. I could name one thing in every one of those categories that you mentioned, but I'm going to say this. Go to Main Street downtown. You will have a selection of different restaurants and stores and connections that are they feel like your own hometown. Mm-hmm. It's a hometown feel, and it's genuine, and they mean it, and it will not matter what store you go into. If you're going in to get a cup of coffee or lunch, you could go back probably 10 or 15 times in a month and go someplace new. But go to the downtown, get a feel for what's happening there, the vibe that's happening there, their Friday farmers market, and just start to really meet the people of DeSoto County, because they are genuine, they are unique, and they are special.
You're so inspiring. I love speaking with you. I love hearing about the stories and the people that you meet in DeSoto. Cheri, thank you again so much for joining us today. And listeners, to learn more, visit thepattersonfoundation.org and stay tuned for more from Discover DeSoto.
Yay! All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.